welcome to Chanel's Reality. I'm Chanel, and this is my reality. Hold on. Still ain't ready. 33 minutes in, still ain't ready. Okay. So listen, I wanted to come on here today. Oh, first, welcome. Much love to the people who have already subscribed to Chanel's Reality. So I think we finally got to 500 people, I believe. I'll check it later. Anyway, I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about Jay-Z and I would say the latest update regarding him, because his attorney is out here talking, saying that Jay-Z, that they have the accuser or Jane Doe on videotape voice audio of her. Boobs are just on those. They have her on videotape, basically saying that she didn't have anything to do with, saying that Jay-Z was there, but he didn't essay her. I'm gonna say that for the purposes of this video. Hey, young RZA, aka Mr. Drip King, coming all the way from, I think, are you in London, Mr. Drip King? I don't know if you're in London or not, but shout out to all my people in London, and shout out to Carmen. She says, hi, Chanel. Hey, Carmen. So I want to play a little bit of a video. It's ABC. Let me share my screen. 1 second. Is ABC News, as are others, are reporting that Jane Doe basically has lied on Jay-Z, and that Jay-Z is vindicated, honey. So let me go back. There's the ad, so hold please. Hopefully this ad will go away soon.
Okay. His attorney, as the hip-hop superstar, is now suing a woman for defamation, saying she falsely accused his attorney. As the hip-hop superstar is now suing a woman for defamation, saying she falsely accused him of assault. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersi spoke with him. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, George. The woman who accused Jay-Z of sexual assault has already dropped her lawsuit. But now, for the first time, you're going to hear the story behind the bombshell accusation that has since been withdrawn. Jay-Z's lawyer says it should put to rest any doubt about his innocence. This morning, the woman who said she was 13 when Sean Jay-Z Carter and Sean Diddy Combs sexually assaulted her after the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards is heard talking to private investigators about her claim and agreeing that Jay-Z did not assault her.
But Jay-Z you're saying he was definitely there? But he had no part in it, or he was just...
He was there.
He was just there, but he didn't have anything to do with any sexual acts towards you. It was strictly, yeah.
The woman is also heard saying her lawyer put her up to suing one of the world's most recognizable stars.
He was the one that kind of pushed me towards going forward with him.
With Jay-Z? Busby did?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
No.
ABC News exclusively obtained a minute-long excerpt of the recording made days after the woman, identified as Jane Doe, permanently dropped her lawsuit against both Carter and Combs last month.
The people around Mr. Carter wanted to know what happened behind closed doors. And so they asked for her to be interviewed. The interview occurred, and the tape speaks for itself. She says, in no uncertain terms, Mr. Carter did not do this. It is effectively a lie. And the only reason Mr. Carter is even involved in this is because she was pushed to involve him, pushed to include him by a lawyer.
The accuser's lawyer, Tony Busby, called it a blatant lie that he pushed Jane Doe to sue Jay-Z, and he sent us this recording of a phone call with his client.
They say that they have you on tape denying that Jay-Z assaulted you. Is that true?
No. I don't. I've never said that.
Okay. They also say that you told them, and they have it on tape, that I, Tony Busby, told you to came up with this plan and told you to say that Jay-Z assaulted you so you would get more money.
No.
Jane Doe said in a court filing, although I ultimately chose not to pursue them, I stand by my claims. she says in a sworn declaration that she felt intimidated and terrified at being confronted by these two individuals on my doorstep.
Okay. So I just want to stop it there and bring Mr. Aria's video into the conversation. So listen, you know, I am an avid believer of victims. On Chanel's Reality, we don't victim shame. It's not changing over here. Okay. And I do think that this is super unfortunate, especially if this young lady or person is lying. Nobody, that's an egregious lie to bring before, you know, a court of law where women aren't often believed or victims aren't often believed anyways, or are very intimidated or scared or ashamed to come forth anyways. And this is a super public one and a super highlighted one. She's accusing one of the most recognizable, like the guy said on the clip, one of the most recognizable people on the planet, mostly because he's next to Bay, just saying. But no, like one of the most recognizable people on the planet of a very egregious crime. And I don't know if she's telling the truth or not telling the truth, because I don't know Jay-Z and I don't know this lady. I don't know none of these people, but it looks really bad for her to be talking to these alleged, I don't know, undercover, whoever the people were that she was talking to. Looks really bad that she's saying no, or she's denying that Jay-Z had anything really to do with it other than him being there. Unless, you know, they parsed the clip a little bit and we didn't get the full Monty, so to speak. And then when her attorney, I'm assuming that was Mr. Busby, calls her and basically says, yo, are you saying to people that this didn't happen to you and that I intimidated you, or that we basically kind of insisted that you bring this or encouraged you to bring this lawsuit forward? That's very damaging to the millions of victims that are victims of sexual assault. Again, if it's not true, but I'm not really certain because I wasn't there. But Mr. Arias' video, what do you think about this scenario and story that's going on?
So ultimately, I think regardless of anything else, whether it's true or not, the original allegations are true or not, as a witness, she's just, even as a plaintiff, she's just completely incredible, uncredible, I'm sorry, I should say, at this stage. I mean, I don't think anything at this point can be taken with any level of credibility. Anything that she said, any of her original accusations, anything at this point. You know, there are some additional assumptions that the person on both recordings is the same individual, whether that's the recording with Jay-Z's lawyers or the recording with Tony Busby. You know, working under that assumption that it is the same individual on both recordings, and they do sound very similar, if not the exact same. She's just a completely uncredible plaintiff at this point, and I just don't think anything, original statements or anything before or after, can be taken with any level of credibility. And just at this point, when it comes to any accusations against Jay-Z, you just can't take anything related to her beyond just a complete and total story at this point.
So what do you say about people who will say, because this is something that is statistically studied or looked into, so to speak, researched rather, that there are many people who recant their stories, specifically victims who have been ostracized or not believed or maybe have inconsistent stories. What do you say? Can you stand 100% on, you know, nothing she says can be credible simply because she recants it and clearly is lying to somebody. She's either lying to the people that came, whoever those investigator people were, and or Busby. So she's lying to one of them at least. What do you say to people who are going to say, you know what, victims sometimes just are scared or ashamed or feel intimidated, so they just recant because they don't feel like going through it, the public scrutiny, so to speak.
I think if it's just one-sided, if we just had the components of her either recanting one side or telling one story to just the lawyers and maintaining what she told Busby or vice versa, I think that's one thing. But the fact that, again, this individual is like literally telling two different stories off both sides of her mouth. She's just, as a plaintiff, as a witness, whatever category, she just has no level of credibility. So regarding, I think, witnesses recanting their statement or, feeling pressured to give a different statement, I don't even think this can be applicable to her. And I think for any and all of the other plaintiffs that do exist, whether they're only pointed towards Puff or Sean Combs or any additional accusations, which I don't believe there are any additional ones pointed towards Jay-Z. I think it's at this point, she just needs to be pulled as far away as possible, because if anything, she hurts credibility towards the other potential plaintiffs and other potential victims who may have actually experienced this level of the accused level of assault. She just needs to be taken as far away from them as possible, because she literally hurts all of their credibility.
So what do you say to, because there are people on YouTube saying, hey, I was approached by some quote unquote FBI people or whomever they were approached by. And these people found me. I don't know how they found me, but they're trying to, pay me off, or they're saying to leave Jay-Z out of it, that type of thing. What do you say to those people who are just seemingly or allegedly just reporting what's been, all up in the news on their channel, but suddenly are getting threatened or approached by people that say they're police or say they're investigators, and no one can really tell one way or the other, because we don't know if they're telling the truth, obviously. But what do you say? Do you think everybody's lying? Because there's a few YouTubers who came online and, actually, I think one of them is like Ratchet TV or something like that. I can't remember what the name of his channel is, but he's one of the ones that came on and was like, people from Jay-Z's office, they interrupted my internet and they're doing all kinds of stuff, sending me messages, like 900 messages in a, 2 or 3 hour span. I don't know what if I could discount everybody. What do you think?
Well, all I can say is I can't really speak specifically to any of the other potential reporters or accusers out there, without knowing more about the details about their specific situations and so forth. What I can say is, at least what's been presented, none of those people have recordings, I guess, one way or the other, and certainly not two-faced recordings where they're saying one thing is occurring and then completely saying a completely different thing at another point in time. So I don't even think with this particular individual you can even hold them, to the same accord, because they are presenting or being presented with recordings of them saying one thing and another recording of them saying something completely different. So I don't think you can really try to validate or invalidate what anyone else is saying. I think it's just, in this instance, this person is completely uncredible, and you just can't take into account anything that she's provided and with anyone else. Again, you'll have to look at their information on a case-to-case basis. But I think this individual now hurts the credibility, potentially, I should say, the credibility of all others because of how outlandish and frankly, how embarrassing their case is now, just based off of these recordings. Again, working under the presumption that the two individuals on both recordings or the individual on both recordings is the same person.
Yeah, I think what catches her up is her saying what you said earlier, which is when Busby, if that's who called her, because I don't know Busby, I don't know none of these people, but when Busby then calls her and records himself and her on the call, and she's saying, no, I didn't say that, no, I didn't do that. The only thing for me, and I'm not trying to beat the dead horse, is it's always thinking, in my mind, I'm always thinking, from when was this video? Or from when was this recording? Like, when did they get it from her? Was it 3 months ago, 6 months ago, or whenever at the very beginning, whenever she initially, made this claim that Jay-Z and P. Diddy, or really, I think she made the claim that P. Diddy on the lawsuit to P. Diddy, and then Jay-Z name was dropped in there, and so then he became a part of it. I think that's what is going to be the nail in her coffin if there isn't some sort of like irrefutable proof that something did happen to her. And I agree that it does, unfortunately, make a situation, it exacerbates what a lot of people do anyway to victims. It exacerbates it, because if she's lying, and it sounds like she is, at least on those videotapes, then everybody who always felt like, we can't believe these victims, these so-called victims, and we need to give them their day in court, and I'm going to hold off judgment, and yada, yada, yada. They're now going to feel very vindicated. They're going to use this exact thing to say, see, this is why we can't, believe people. And that, to me, is the greatest injustice that's going to happen, because I think it's going to be damaging to all of those victims, like you said, or anybody who wanted to come forward if they haven't already come forward. It leaves a black stain on it. But also, now I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for any other victims that maybe were victims of Jay-Z in some capacity, because I think it hurts, all victims across the board. But I think anyone who was like gearing up, be like, okay, well, if she gets it, then we have a stronger case, or maybe it's more believable, yada, yada, yada. I think it's killing all those cases unless they can provide proof that any of the allegations are true. So it's very unfortunate. But let's just finish listening to what he has to say, and then we'll go from there.
Was she coerced in any way?
Of course not. They did not coerce her, promise or threaten her in any way, shape, or form. She voluntarily met, spoke to them, and she told them her truth, which was, under no circumstances did Mr. Carter do this. And number two, the only reason he's even involved in this is she was pushed to introduce him by a lawyer.
Does your client know Jane Doe?
No.
He lied.
Ever met her?
No, Mr. Carter doesn't know Jane Doe, never met Jane Doe. There's no truth to any of this.
Okay, so listen, okay, not everybody knows this, but that attorney is lying about him knowing. I won't say he's lying that Jay-Z, quote unquote, knows this lady like personally, but he was caught in a lie saying that he doesn't know the name of the victim. Because remember, there was this whole scenario where it's like, well, everybody has the right, at least in America, to face their accuser. Everybody has the right. So it's kind of like this situation where it's like, how can you say everybody has a right to face their accuser, but then not name or not force this lady to come out and say her name, type of thing. But there's a lot of legal loopholes and reasons why Jane Does can be Jane Does. And sometimes they have to, reveal who they are, but it's all up to the judge and at the end of the day. But his attorney, I'm gonna have to find it. I can't remember exactly when it was. I feel like it was maybe like 3 weeks ago, where he was basically saying that he slipped and said that he knew the lady, he knew her name or something to that effect, meaning the attorney knew. But then was like, when he was referring to Jay-Z, he was like, oh, well, you know, no, Mr. Carter doesn't know. And it's like, but you just said you know. How would you know? You shouldn't know because her name is Jane Doe. Nobody should know who she is except her attorney, period. Unless, with the exception, I guess, of those people who videoed her. But I don't know if that video she did at home or and sent it in, or if they covered her face then. So maybe they truly don't know who she is. I don't know. But outside of her attorney, nobody should know who this lady is. They should know her name, her address, and none of that. But his attorney definitely knows who she is. And so then it's like, you really want us to believe that Jay-Z doesn't know who this lady is? Like, stop it. So, but anyways, what do you think about the correspondence in between him and this reporter who's basically saying there's no truth to her being kind of like, I don't want to say blackmailed, but you know, maybe coerced in some manner to say, yeah, I don't know, no, Jay-Z wasn't there, he didn't do it. Do you think there's any truth to that? Or what do you think about what he's saying regarding that?
Well, well, I don't know. I think, I guess, as far as the first component, maybe I misunderstood. I feel like the reporter was asking the lawyer, does your client know this Jane Doe? Meaning, you know, does he have any direct affiliation? Not know of her name or not. I think, you know, just referring to, does he know her on any level, on a personal level or not? And so for him to answer, no, he doesn't, I don't know if that can be quantified as a lie. As far as the lawyer knowing the individual or the name, you know, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't know any of the parameters of a legal case, but I do know there are things called discoveries, and I think for any lawyer, if they have to prepare to defend their client, there are certain things that they may have to know in regards to the evidence in relation to the case, in regards to the plaintiff. You know, how can you build a defense if you don't know who the person is that's necessarily bringing these accusations?
The judge has already said, no, you can't know her. She doesn't have to disclose who she is. So if the judge has already said that to you months ago, then how is it that you're basically saying, I know her, but not saying it? He slipped up and said it, but like I said, it's in another video. It was a few weeks ago.
Okay.
But I agree.
Well, like I said, from this, I mean, he's saying his client doesn't know her. I can't really quantify him as a liar or not. If there's another video.
Maybe I could go with, maybe he's not lying about this story, which I don't believe, because I know he made a statement that irrefutably let the audience know he knows her, or he at least knows her name. He did, the attorney did. But the reason that I can't say that this man isn't a liar is because he had a news conference and said that Jay-Z and BP Stupid Diddy, the diddler, whatever you want to call him, don't even know each other like that. They're not friends. They are just people who see each other at, you know, different music events. That's a fucking lie, and the whole world knows it. And for him to stand up there and say that is preposterous. So therefore, we can't put him in the category of a truth teller anymore. When you stand up there and completely lie through your teeth, and everyone knows that. I mean, there's so much video proof that these people clearly intimately know each other. They have business dealings together, and he's at his white party every year. It's like, come on, like, stop it. So that's why he lost all his credibility months ago.
I think, again, you know, you can choose to see it the way that you see it, and that's fine.
I will. It's reality.
But you know, but the real reality, I guess, of the situation, you know, how Jay-Z maybe classifies or quantifies his relationship with Diddy, you know, and if Jay-Z says we just have a professional relationship, you know, Jay-Z can say that, and I'm not going to call him an outright liar. And if his lawyer is basically parroting that same thing, I'm not going to necessarily call him a liar because of that as well. You know, I look at, you know, we go back to, like, I can take it from a sports perspective. For years, you know, you talk to many sports fans, especially growing up watching like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen playing on the court together. Everybody would say, oh my God, they're the best of friends because they play on the court every single day together. They're in practice together and they perform so well together. But literally, you talk to and ask both of them, And, you know, Michael Jordan is on record, Scottie Pippen's on record. They're coworkers. You know, they work together. They weren't best friends. They didn't really hang out after the games or do anything like that. You know, what you saw on the court told a different story. But, you know, as professional basketball players, their relationship was professional basketball players, no matter what that presented or looked like, quote unquote, on screen, on your TV screen. Now, again, I can't quantify or say what level of personal friendly relationship that Jay-Z and Sean Combs have with each other, but to take it and say, okay, because they were in videos together, they did music together, I mean, that is all business. To quantify be anything really beyond that face value, what they ultimately say and how they ultimately quantified it, if they say it's a business relationship, okay, I think you can take that for what it is.
Do you think people typically have their people who they're not friends with, they're just only coworkers, as their children's godparents? Like, that's Uncle Jay. His kids have a relationship with this man, and you're still saying and gonna agree that, oh no, we just people that's in a music business industry, and we don't deal with
So
outside of
again, with whatever information I have, so are you saying that who's God?
Sean Combs has,
Mhm.
I think, 4 or 5 kids. I don't remember how many kids he has, but they're supposedly Jay-Z supposedly the godfather, allegedly.
Supposedly based off of what? You know, are there some
Goddaddy or that Uncle Jay, that type of stuff. So it's like,
but again, based off of what? This is something you've heard off of the internet. There's some, you know, you can
things
get documentation that says, hey, you can legally name somebody as a godparent, and is it based off of that? Because again, it's what are you basing that off of? If you're telling me because, well, I read it on an internet story from, you know, Jabba Wright, okay. I mean, you know, she's the quintessential, you know, goddess of all things that is truth on this earth, versus, you know, okay, yeah, here's, you know, they signed this, you know, in the case of Sean Combs's death, you know, Sean Carter doesn't, and Beyonce Knowles Carter will be the legal parents or guardians of, you know, whoever Combs Jr. or whatever. Sure, then at that point, I think you have more of a case. But if it's somebody just said something on an internet blog and now all of a sudden it's fact, I'm going to be hesitant to
so it's
believe that.
so it's your opinion, based on the limited knowledge you say you have on Jay-Z and P. Diddy, that it's very and highly possible, or I'll just say very possible, but that these people didn't know each other outside of coming to industry parties together and attending, I guess, P. Diddy's white parties, and maybe a few dealings with each other, like business dealings with each other. Outside of that, you believe that these men are possibly not friends at all?
What my opinion is, and simply this, is that because of based off of, I'm not going to outright call his lawyer or him a liar in their statement of they only have a business relationship simply based off of some unpresented documentation at this point that
I told you find it. I'll bring it up here. Go ahead.
okay, so but I'm saying that they are each other's god brothers or whatever the case may be. I'm not willing, basically all I'm saying is I'm not willing to dismiss that statement that they only had a business relationship without further information confirming otherwise. And again, that's based off of the limited amount of information or whatever that I do have. And again, some anecdotal evidence in the example that I gave with like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, just because two people in a public eye may appear to be a certain way, you know, again, in that anecdotal example, the two individuals themselves say, no, we just had a business relationship. That's what they, and there's no accusations or anything beyond presented for either of those individuals. This is just them telling their truth.
Diddy said that he told this to one of those, I forget, night show hosts. He's a little chubby guy with like brown hair. He's some sort of comedian, nighttime comedian guy, like from London or somewhere like that. And him and Diddy were in a car going somewhere or driving or whatever as part of the little skit for their I guess portion of that show. And he was talking to he was interviewing Sean Combs, Diddy, and he asked him about Jay-Z and, you know, their friendship or something to that effect. And then Sean Combs was like, yeah, there's only, I think he said only 2 people on the planet that can address me as Sean. And I think he said outside of my mother, the only person that can call me Sean is Jay-Z. I'm just saying, I think there's truth in, you know, there's a merit in what you're saying about, well, we don't really know because we don't really know these people personally. And unless you have them on videotape, you know, hugged up and on vacation together and things like that, or them outright saying, this is my brother, which I believe both of them have said. But like I said, I'll dig it up.
I mean, again, if you can find it or whatever, but you know, me taking necessarily what Sean Combs is saying at face value, I mean, I could take that same face value. I'm sure if you ask Sean Combs on without that other person being present, him and 50 Cent go shopping all the time, you know, and they cool like that. I'm sure 50 wouldn't say the same thing. I guarantee you 50 wouldn't say the same thing because 50 has overtly said, what do you mean you want to take me shopping? What's wrong with you? But for Sean, oh yeah, you know, we cool. We gonna go shopping. No, it ain't like that. So again, that may be, whatever you're saying may be accurate. It could also be very one-sided. I'm not saying it's true or not true one way or the other. I'm just saying based off the information that's presented, I'm not going to call him an outright liar. I'm not calling anybody an outright liar, just based off the information available.
He's absolutely a liar. That's what lawyers, that's their whole shtick. But no, I get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. It can be, it's all hearsay, but I think most of the internet, most of Hollywood, most of hip hop would probably disagree with you. But fair point.
I mean, good thing for probably at this point, Jay-Z, that most of Hollywood and the internet aren't the ones who decide his guilt or innocence. And that court of law actually does that.
The court of law does. But there's lots of people, you know, in high places that say that, or have said for years, that these men are great and they're this, that, and the third, giving them all kinds of accolades. And there's a lot of behavior that Jay-Z has displayed and been accused of and actually been arrested for that is very unsavory. Lots of behavior, especially predatory behavior. If we're gonna keep it a buck, him and Sean, what's the name? I call him Shitty Diddy. But yeah, Sean Combs, they both have been. It's just, for me, I think it's difficult to just give his lawyer and or him any real credence because of the associate that he has. You know, the people he's associated, at least publicly, are all, at least 4 of them are all accused of or has been accused of and prosecuted in some level of sexual assault. It just is a fact. And so to me, since I don't have no, you know, pedo friends and that I know of, and any, you know, friends that have been sexually accused of sexual assault or, you know, anything like that in my circle that I know of, like I said, it could be anybody. It's hard for me to believe that you just this person's, you know, that y'all just industry friends and you don't really know him like that and y'all aren't friends. It's hard for me to believe that. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's going to be determined by the court of law. Maybe. I think that he's not going to get.
I mean, I think, you know, beyond any of that, regardless, I mean, they're friends, they're best friends, they're business associates. That Sean Combs, I'm sure, would quantify himself as friends with a lot of people. I'm sure there are a lot of people that will quantify themselves as friends with Sean Combs. That, by definition, does not make those individuals essayers and R's and anything else, just even though they may or may not be friends, compadres, business associates, or otherwise. That by definition does not necessarily lump those other individuals in.
I get what you're saying, but then if and that could be absolutely true, 100%. But then what person, especially a person of means, especially a very public person, especially a very influential person, and a very powerful person, why would you not, at least at this point, disassociate yourself with these other 4 people who have all been accused of sexual assault? One of them is dead, Epstein. Weinstein is, I don't know where he is, but he seems like he's crippled now or whatever. He was accused, and I think he was found guilty, but I could be wrong about that. R. Kelly, you did 2 albums with him after he was accused of raping, I don't even know how many people, or at least sexually assaulting him. And then Diddy, who's currently under, in jail and been indicted. It just seems like, to me, even, you're absolutely right. You could be a person who just happens to know, just by default, happens to know and have close ties and business deals with people who are all accused of sexual assault. You could be, but it just seems awfully strange that you have so many quote unquote industry friends or whatever you want to call it, or close associates or seemingly close associates, who are all accused, and some have been convicted of saying tons of women.
I mean, again, if that's what constitutes guilt, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident. Well, I'm saying, but I'm pretty confident, and I haven't. But if I went right now and if I did a Google search of photos of Barack Obama with pretty much every single last one of those people that you named, I'm sure there will be pictures. I'm sure there will be some photo of Barack with, I'm pretty confident there'll be some photo of Barack with Sean Combs, with Jay-Z, and with R. Kelly. I'm pretty confident there are photos that exist of this. That does not, again, by definition, quantify him.
Hold on, pause. So obviously we would find one of Barack Obama and Jay-Z. Why? Because his Jay-Z's whole wife sang at the first inauguration of President Obama. Okay, so yeah, we gonna find that video or footage or whatever. And that's absolutely true. You could find, however, of course, you could be in a photo with somebody, and a photo doesn't mean that you know somebody or you're friends with them or whatever the case may be.
But in order to get that photo, you have to be in the same vicinity of that individual, correct?
If we want to keep it a buck, Donald Trump has been in all kinds of photos with, I would say, people of good standing in the world, but he's also thinking he's friends with our arch enemy in Putin. So it's like, really, we can use that, and we can just say, well, this person, that you will be a great defense attorney, because your job is poking holes in the prosecution's case. And if I'm the prosecution, you definitely poking some holes up in my case. But at the end of the day, just because something doesn't look like it's something else does not mean that it isn't something else. Sometimes it could look very guilty and not be, and sometimes it could look very innocent and not be. And all I'm saying is, the man Jay-Z has a whole lot of association with people who aren't so great. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, you can find a photo, I'm sure, with Michelle Obama, shaking hands or being in a room with someone that is not a person that, is of good high standing or good character. Absolutely. But the bigger point that I'm trying to make here is that at some point, if your quote unquote industry friend is being accused of these things, and your other 4 friends have been accused and some persecuted and prosecuted and found guilty of, wouldn't it just say, if you are of good standing, yo, we don't rock with that dude no more. Yo, I was friends with him, but I knew nothing of these things. You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't you just say something to that effect, especially if it's affecting your family so deeply or whatever? And I'm sure it is affecting his family, but it's like, at some point, you should say this shit is wrong. What person wouldn't say this shit is wrong? And what person wouldn't come out and say, especially if they're not wrong, especially if it is affecting your family? Yo, I know it could appear to be a certain way, but it isn't that. Why not come out and say, hey, yo, what he did is wrong. What he's been accused of is even more insidious than I ever thought it could be. This is not a person that I knew. This is not a person that had this behavior around me. at the end of the day, he don't even have to denounce the man. He could just say, this is not something that I knew about. And he still hasn't said one word.
So again, I think, I can respect your position and where you're coming from, your point of view on this. I'm going to, try to take a greater view of the situation, specifically in relation to Jay-Z, his position, his level of notoriety and everything else, and how all those things kind of come into play. And being in the public eye, I think many of us can probably attest to this, not being in the public eye, but things that we see. The second you make any type of a statement, the second you say one thing, whether it's in an interview, whether it's a public statement, whatever the case may be, it is very easy for any of that to be taken out of context, for it to be by the media, construed to build a certain narrative. Whereas if you just don't say anything at all, guess what? They can't use anything that you don't say potentially against you. And sometimes it's just better to just be quiet. Just don't say nothing, because all it takes is one stutter, one misspoken word or phrase or anything else, and boom, now you're a part of the story. Whereas if you just shut the F up, can nobody use anything you don't say against you at the end of the day.
He's already done that, though. That's what I'm saying. He's already
from my understanding, and again, very limited knowledge, my understanding, the only direct statement that he made was when this, what looks like right now, very, very clearly false allegation was brought up against him. But you're saying, making these comments about, well, why don't you just come out and say something, not necessarily against him, but just disassociate yourself? Because the second I say something, now all of a sudden the media potentially has something to try to transpose or use against me. And I'm sure that's what his legal counsel has advised him of. Shut the F up, for your own benefit.
Correct.
But when it's something where it's pretty right now apparent, completely egregious and not right lie against him, at that point, maybe his legal counsel did tell him, hey, we should truly advise that you don't make a statement. And he came out, no, this is an outright lie. I'm going to say something, regardless of anything else. I'm going to say something. And that could have been against the advice of his counsel, or whatever the case may be. So maybe he listened up until the point that now some false allegation came up against him. And at that point, nobody's going to stop me from talking. I'm going to go ahead and say something now. I'm going to speak out and let something be known.
Jaguar Wright went on to Piers Morgan's show a few months ago, and she didn't accuse him of sex rape or SA or none of that. She said he and his wife are a nasty little couple who do nasty little things, right? Him and his wife, then the next day or the next hour or whatever, they got they hotshot attorney on the phone, and they basically said, make this mofo take this shit down. Period point blank. And in my opinion, and I'm nowhere near a legal scholar of any stretch of the imagination, but even I knew that's a bad look. Even though I know his point was to say, let's make sure before y'all start trying to roll this ball down this hill, let's stop Piers Morgan and anybody else that thinks they're going to try it with us. Let's stop them dead in their tracks, because Jaguar Wright's been saying all kinds of shit about Jay-Z and Diddy for years. Way more egregious than she did on the Piers Morgan show. But my point is this: she didn't even accuse you of that, but then you go on there and you say basically this information is false, and me and my wife would not, be involved in any of that, through your attorney. Take that shit down. And the same thing happened whenever he put that little statement out, I think on Rock Nation, whatever their website is. He basically pitted himself directly against Busby. And said, you don't know me, and da 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 da. He said a whole bunch of shit, in my opinion, that's going to be used against him if anyone else actually makes a attempt to try to civilly sue him, because I think the criminal suits are probably way too far away or too far back for the statutes of limitation, unless they change something, which I highly doubt is going to happen. But if anyone comes and tries to sue him civilly or even criminally later, their defense attorney is going to use all of those words against him. Him saying, "I'm not friends with," or his lawyer, he's not friends with this man. They're gonna, I promise you, go dig up every single thing that they've done together and say yes you are. And they're not gonna be able to get their way out of it, because now you said, you pigeonholed yourself, in my opinion, Jay-Z did, him and Beyonce. You pigeonholed yourself when you said, me and my wife, or we would never be associated with people like that. And wouldn't you agree? Because this is what he said in his little Rock Nation thing. Wouldn't you agree that someone who sexually assaults people should be in prison and should be persecuted? And I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's what he said in that statement that he put out on Rock Nation or whatever. Again, if you've never sexually assaulted anybody and you have never had sex with an underage person, which is sexual assault because they can't give consent if you're underage, then you are now pigeonholing yourself into a whole ass lie. And we all know it, because we all know he was having sex with Foxy Brown, and that girl was 15 years old. We all know it. Even Foxy knows it. She said something to that degree, and I talked about it and played it on my channel. She did. She said it. So it's just kind of like, fuck out of here with that bullshit. We know you're lying. We know that you also, now this part is alleged, have a son or a few kids that you claim you don't have. And if you were able, if that young man was able to get Jay-Z's, what is it, DNA, then he could prove whether or not he is his father. But most of us believe, yeah, that probably is your daddy. You know, and if it isn't, why not give your DNA so you could prove that you're, you know, not this person's dad? The reason that most of the internet says that he doesn't do it is because then he would have to admit that he was having sex with an underage person. He would have to admit that he was having sex with a 14 or 15 or 16, however old she was underage. He's never going to do that. And I think too, Jay-Z and Beyonce have mastered the craft of, we ain't gonna say shit, period. We're not gonna comment. We ain't gonna say nothing. This is a situation that I do personally believe deserves attention, verbal attention. I do agree with your statements about just shut the fuck up, use your Miranda rights, and don't say nothing, because whatever you say, let the legal, you know, the legal people who went to school and understand how law works, let them handle it, let them deal with it. I do agree with that, because once you say it, it's out there and people will pick it apart, and it'll become a, what's the right word? It'll become a clip of nuanced information that people don't give you the whole truth and the whole statement. So I agree with that part of it. But I do think that if my life is on the line in the way, to me, his life has been on the line regarding this case, I do think it's better to say something. Even if you say it through your attorney, it's better to say something than to sit around and not say anything. But maybe his attorneys are right. Maybe they'll get him out of this and he'll never have to say anything. But I do think the floodgates are going to open soon. And I never thought this was the case that was going to take him down. I never felt that way. Because I do think in a lot of situations like this, you have to have proof. And unfortunately, like I've said 100 times, sexual assault happens typically under the cover of dark, and you got to have real good DNA to prove. You got to have evidence that's indisputable to prove it in most cases, unless someone just settles out of court. And Jay-Z doesn't seem to be that type of person that he's going to settle anything out of court. He said that from the jump when he made that Rock Nation statement. And so I think it's going to be difficult. I always thought it was going to be difficult for that young lady to prove that. But now all of her credibility, I think, is shot. I will say this one last thing, though. If you've never seen this movie, for all my people out there that are going to watch this video at some point, there's a movie called Unbelievable. And I think it's on Netflix, or it's on one of those type of platforms. But the moral of the story, I don't want to give the movie away, is that lady in that movie, listen, lots of people believed her, lots of people didn't believe her, and I won't give it away. But the title of the movie, listen, that movie has ups and downs and things that you're just like, are you serious right now that this happened to this young lady or didn't happen to this young lady? So that's why I don't want to give it away. But for the people that will say, well, she recanted and she, you know, made a false statement, or she lied to the police or lied to her attorney, or whatever. I think that can happen and has happened to people who were victims of sexual assault. I don't think someone recanting or being quote unquote caught in a lie or unable to prove something within beyond a reasonable doubt necessarily means that they're lying and or making false allegations. I don't necessarily believe that. I do think that because this young lady allegedly is autistic or is on the spectrum, I don't know. How do you really discount what she's saying? Does she really even understand everything? Because people who are on the spectrum sometimes can be highly intelligent and some could have the lowest IQ on the scale. So you just never really know. But I will say it looks bad. It looks incredibly bad for her. And it looks even worse, I feel like, for BuzzFeed with his 200, with his alleged 200.
I don't know if it looks that bad for BuzzFeed because
You don't think
so I'll say this. Just listening to your comments and your perspective and everything else. And again, always want to be respectful of someone's perspective as much as you can. I would encourage you maybe even later going back and rewatching this video from an objective point of view. But you'll say, Jay-Z did essentially business with Sean Combs, but he said they're only business partners, and that's a lie because they have to be, more than business partners, even though there's no proof of anything other than the fact that they did business together. That is factual.
I have. That's what
there's no proof that you have of this. Jay-Z associated with all these other alleged and or convicted sexual assaulters, so he has to be also guilty of something because of that, even though again, Barack can have pictures with all the same people, but no, it can't be Barack. He's not. He's okay. And to the best of my knowledge, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but my understanding right now is that there's only been one direct allegation against Jay-Z in the entirety of this criminal proceeding related to Sean Combs. And that there's been just this one allegation. So again, he has to be guilty of something more. And you attest to all of this based off of really purely circumstantial. I mean, the skimmest of circumstantial evidence. Yet and still, you have this one accuser who is factually recorded, saying one thing, and then literally lying about what they said when they said it to somebody else. And then, even going back to their initial allegation. And even though this is recorded and it's clearly there, you seem to be very open to, well, she felt pressured, so we're not going to completely dismiss her as being a victim, even though she said she lied, and then she lied about saying that she lied. But we'll still believe her regardless of any of the evidence. But we have virtually no evidence against Jay-Z, all circumstantial, who he hung out with, and yet and still he has to be there. He's done something wrong. I think how quickly you are. I'm all for victims' rights, and yes, the victim should be heard and everything else. But while yes, victims can be influenced and pressured and everything else, and absolutely, people can also lie, and it is a possibility that a person can lie about being a victim. It is absolutely a possibility, and absolutely it has occurred. But you seem very unwilling to even, despite as much factual information that may be in front of you, You seem to be very unwilling to even factor that in as a possibility. It's just not possible in this woman's case. It's more likely, or I'll say it this way, it's more likely, even though there is recorded evidence of this individual lying, or at least again, assuming it's the same person on each of the recordings lying, there's more evidence that they're a liar, but you seem to be more apt to want to believe their original accusation, as opposed to there is virtually no evidence of Jay-Z doing any wrongdoing, and he has to be a bad guy. There's just absolutely because of he hung around and everything else, and that's essentially how all of your statements and everything.
Let me clear it up. No, I can see what you're saying. Yes, I do believe victims, and I'm always going to believe victims. I feel like so many people, specifically men, get away with sexual assault so much. So yeah, I'm going to believe the victim. I am, and I know people personally and otherwise who say things have happened to them, and because people don't believe them, their family wants to shame them and whatever else, they're just like, you know what? No, it didn't happen. I lied about it. I know people like that in business or in my work life and otherwise. So I have every reason to believe that victims recant. It's not just me. It's studies, like I said, that have happened where percentages of victims will just say, you know what, I take it back. It didn't happen. Lots of people do that, and this idea of like, well, Barack Obama may have been in a video or picture with, this person over here, Jay-Z, who's this, and P. Diddy, who's that, and whatever else. That doesn't necessarily mean that, he's really in bed with this man or done anything that he's been accused of. I agree with that. I do agree with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And if I'm going to keep it a buck, I definitely would believe Barack Obama saying, you know what, that was just a picture of. Why? Because he has a background that's almost spotless. It's real difficult to have an almost spotless or completely spotless background when you're running for president as a Black man, quote unquote. So he has to basically be perfect. So yeah, I'm going to believe if someone comes and says, well, you don't really know Barack Obama. He had a picture with all of these other 5 people who were accused of sexual assault and this, that, and the third. I'm going to give that man the benefit of the doubt because I have a reason to give that man the benefit of the doubt. And unlike you, I've been on the internet. Not that the internet tells the truth all the time. We obviously know people can lie and put anything on the internet. But at the end of the day, there are, what's the right word? There's documented proof that Jay-Z shot his brother, allegedly stabbed a man in a club, sold drugs, and all kinds of other shit. We ain't gonna even get into the personal things that he's done to his business partner, the guy he started Rock Nation or Rockaware and all of that stuff with. There's all kinds of shady dealings that this man has had in his background that are provable. That there are arrest pictures of this man. So, and it's not, he got arrested because he didn't pay his traffic ticket or he was speeding or, something that most of us have done in life. These are very serious, egregious charges that this man has been arrested for in his past, and actually came on TV and said, yeah, I did shoot my brother when I was 12 or however old he was. So I have a reason to not believe this man just because he's going on TV or just because his attorney is saying, no, he doesn't know P. Diddy. And just because his attorney is saying that's egregious and that's a lie and my client will never do this, that, and the third. I'm sorry. I call bullshit. I absolutely believe that you've done something wrong. And just because this lady might be the one lady or a lady who's lying on him, that doesn't mean that I'm suddenly going to just kind of be like, well, since she lied, let's throw out everything else. No, I'm not throwing out everything else.
But what is everything else? There's no other accusers. Who else is accusing?
There's no other accusers that we know of.
Oh.
Be clear. There's none that we know of. I'm sure there's I'm sure.
I mean, thus.
Let's be clear. How long was Epstein not accused of anything? Most of his adult life when he had all kinds of riches. Same thing with Donald Trump. Most of his adult life not accused of R. Kelly. How long was it that before that man was accused and he was on videotape? There's a prince, I forget his name, I don't know if he's a prince. He's some sort of royalty over in France or in London somewhere who wasn't accused until he was accused with the Epstein stuff. So give me a break and cut out the bullshit with, oh, well, he hasn't been accused. Who gives a shit? There's a whole bunch of men walking around who haven't been accused of shit.
You're right. Like Trevor Noah, who he hasn't been accused of anything. He's certainly a rapist. Hill Harper, even though there haven't been any accusations against him at all, he is 100%. He's not only a pedophile. He also likes to have sex with animals.
Be quiet.
No one's accused him of that yet, but he's walking around, so it has to have occurred, even though there hasn't been any accusations of it yet.
Tell me what you think about this photo. You see it? Can you see this photo? You know who that is? You know those people?
That looks like Rosa Parks and Donald Trump. So she must. Oh my God, Rosa Parks is the devil, because look at who she's hanging around with.
That's actually I meant the opposite. So he must be a good person because he's hanging out with.
No, but we know he's. So there's. Hold on. There's criminal. Just like you gave all that other examples earlier. How many times Jay-Z has shot this person and everything else? We got criminal, actual legal documents and information that show that man is a criminal. So if Rosa Parks is hanging around with him, oh my God, she is absolutely the most grotesque human being who has ever lived.
At the end of the day, that my point was, just because he's in the picture with Rosa Parks doesn't mean he's an angel. Because your point is, just because Jay-Z is in the picture with people with Epstein, Weinstein, R. Kelly, and Diddy, that doesn't mean that man's crazy. That doesn't mean he's a pedophile just because he's in the picture with him. So
right. So a picture says nothing, and who you associate with, because Rosa Parks associated with Donald Trump, at least in that picture, does not necessarily define who she is. Just like who he hung out with, and so there is no evidence one way or the other to at this stage anyway quantify and directly associate the alleged crimes of Sean Combs with Jay-Z. And even though as clear as day as it is in this specific instance where this alleged accuser has been literally recorded as lying, it's still more likely that they were just compelled to recant than it is as likely that they just outright lied. And for you, it's still more likely that they were compelled and pressured than the likelihood of them just lying. So they're just a liar.
For all of the women that Epstein and Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and line them up, R. Kelly, all of these egregious men, before they were found out, before they were brought to justice, before anyone said anything, we could use your same logic to let all of those men never be accused of anything, because hey, they were never accused before they were accused. So therefore, they must be good upstanding people.
Great. Once they're accused, and they actually have accuser or multiple accusers, then we can go to court and we can see what happens. At this stage, he does not have one valid accuser. He simply does not have one valid accuser.
You said that. She's the only accuser. So and this accuser is a liar. So therefore, right? That's your point. So we can't believe that this man is guilty of anything else simply because this one accuser is a liar. So therefore, everybody else could possibly be liars, but we don't have anybody else that's accusing him right now.
I'm only talking about Jay-Z because there's nobody else who is accusing him of anything, but he has to be a rapist because no one else is accusing him of.
Let me say my statement. Okay. My point is this: just because there hasn't been 30 women or 30 victims accusing this man of the same thing that this one lady is lying about does not mean by default that he must not be guilty of something else.
The exact opposite holds true. And just because there are not doesn't mean that he is guilty of something.
That's my statement. For me, I can't say for everybody else, but for me, the fact that this man has been, Jay-Z, arrested multiple times for violent acts, period. For me, that's going to give me, what do they call it in court? Reasonable doubt. So you could say whatever you want to say, but for me, if you've been accused twice, at least twice, of violently doing acts on other people, like shooting people and stabbing them, when you've been accused and you've been booked and arrested for these things, I'm so sorry. I believe you. I believe you. You went on TV and you said that you shot your brother. So it's not a stretch, in my opinion, for you to also have raped somebody. It's just not a stretch. If you don't give a fuck about your own brother's life to the point where you shooting him over some crack or cocaine or whatever it is you was allegedly selling, it's not a stretch for a person like me to believe that you have other nefarious acts in your past. It's just not. Again, if it was the Barack Obama that you wanted to use earlier to prove your point, then absolutely. I can say, yeah, now I don't believe, I'm gonna give Barack the benefit of the doubt that this person is simply lying on him. But my bigger point is this, to your idea of, well, there's no one else that has accused this man. So, and this lady's lying. So we just gotta, we can't believe he's guilty of anything else. And why would you consistently still believe that this man may be accused of something else? I consistently and still believe that this man is not accused, guilty of other things like that, like rape, is simply because you have done things that are even more egregious, like attempted murder. Because that's, to me, what it is when you shoot your brother with a gun. That's just how I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong, because I think the law thinks the same. But at the end of the day, he got those things somehow wiped away, just like our president that got however many felonies. People are not holding that man accountable. Just like I said, with Epstein, Weinstein, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, and on and on and on. Those people weren't accused until they were accused. And then even with a lot of those people, guess what happened with Epstein? Multiple times. Those women that he raped, they were called prostitutes, and we all know better. Now he's gone, he offed himself or someone offed him in jail. But at the end of the day, there's lots of people this man has done this much for the community and and they just trying to take him down. How many times and how many victims had to be victims when this man was brought before the court of law, and they egregiously, time after time, let him go? Same thing with Bill Cosby. Same thing with Donald Trump. Same thing with R. Kelly and Weinstein and all the other ones. No one, even though people knew that these people were monsters, they had video proof of what R. Kelly was doing. Period. They had video proof of it, and he still walked away. For how many other 30 more years?
And all of that, everything else, what does any of that have to do with Sean Jay-Z Carter? I don't know. Have you ever heard of Reuben Carter? Have you ever heard the name Reuben Carter? Does that name sound familiar? I'm asking a question. Have you ever heard the name Reuben Carter? Does that sound familiar?
Oh my God, stop it.
Reuben Carter. How about this? Reuben Hurricane Carter. Have you ever heard of Reuben Hurricane Carter? I'm just asking you, have you ever heard of this individual?
Played in that movie Hurricane. Is that what you're trying to get me on?
I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Hurricane? Have you seen the movie Hurricane?
Don't do that. Don't act like she's boy. Anyway,
but Reuben, just so you know, Reuben Hurricane Carter, well, especially as a youth, was arrested for a number of offenses as a youth coming up. He's a boxer, was arrested for fighting.
So now what?
So he was arrested for all these things, and eventually he was arrested for murder. And so he was acquitted of the murder, even though all this evidence showed that he wasn't even at the murder scene and everything else. But because he has that history, he absolutely has to be a murderer, right?
I didn't say absolutely has to be. I said that, yes, it's easier for me to believe that Jay-Z could be involved.
So it's easier for you to believe that Reuben Carter is a murderer.
He's already been involved in nefarious violent crimes. Yes.
Even though again, even though there is literally not one legitimate accusation against him at this point for the crime that you're
accusation that you know of. Stop it. There wasn't, like I said, quote unquote, legitimate evidence for all of the women that accused Epstein for however many years. There wasn't legitimate evidence for all of the women that have accused Donald Trump.
You're right. So here's what we do. Let's lock them all up. Let's lock them all up and just let God sort them out. I think that would be the easiest thing.
If you want to play that game, I don't know if you really want to play that game.
Because I don't know if it's a game. I'm just telling you what it is.
The game is this. There were nothing but men in the room when our Constitution was being written. There were nothing but men in the room when most of the legislation that's still standing in our government was written by men. So yeah, I do believe.
So because of all men in the Constitution, Jay-Z is a rapist? Oh, I'm
No,
sorry. All men wrote the
I'm
Constitution. Jay-Z
saying.
is a rapist.
No, let me finish what I'm saying. Because of all of the things that have happened over the years to women and all of the many studies where women have been pervasively raped and ridiculed and not allowed to do 100 other things, not things like vote, all of these things have been put in place, statutes of limitation, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, to protect people like Jay-Z, like P. Diddy, like Weinstein, like R. Kelly, and on and on and on. It makes sense to me that the people who are making the rules are going to do shit and make rules. They're going to, benefit them. That's not going to go against their own best interest, because why do we still even have laws like that? Why? Because it goes against women's best interest. That's why. That's why. So at the end of the day, you can throw out all of your opinions about me and what I don't know, and all of this has nothing to do with Jay-Z. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry, maybe I'm crazy, call me crazy, but I just tend to believe people's actions. And this man's actions, not Donald Trump, but Jay-Z's actions to me and his words suggest that he's a violent human being. When you can shoot your brother, you're violent. When you can go into a club and allegedly stab somebody, and I say allegedly only because that person recanted it, but he definitely got stabbed, and lots of other people. He said he stabbed me to those people in the club when he got stabbed. But suddenly, no, Jay-Z didn't do it. Okay, well, whatever. But at the end of the day, this idea, because I can't compare the two simply because I don't have all of the women that probably were assaulted by this man. And I wholeheartedly believe that there were definitely women that this man, and maybe even men, I don't know, that this man probably had some sort of sexual assault happen. And I believe that because I 100% believe that man, the grown ass Jay-Z, was having sex with Foxy Brown underage. I believe that wholeheartedly. And you can say whatever you want to say, because it's on the internet. It can be true, but there's a whole bunch of shit on the internet that is true. So stop it. Like 48 hours, investigate. Those cases are also true for the ones that they found evidence for. But this idea that we have to that we can move the pendulum off of this person, or what's that thing called, where it's like you have a target on their back. We can just remove this target on Jay-Z's back because nobody else has been able to corroborate what this woman said, and or other people haven't accused him yet. Then we can't sail him up the river and say he's done other things. I can certainly sail him up the river and say with a high level of confidence that man has been engaged in some things that are nefarious. I believe that. Why? Because he shot his brother. So I believe that you're dangerous. I do. You stabbed another man in the club. I'm going to believe that you're dangerous, and you were charged with these things. So I believe that you're dangerous, period. And so it's not a stretch for me if you can almost kill your own brother with a gun, that you could rape somebody and disappear people. It's just not that far-fetched for me to believe that someone who's been arrested for these violent crimes could be violent. I don't know why that's a stretch for others, but it is just not a stretch for Chanel right here on Chanel's Reality. It's not a stretch for me. I believe I didn't know anything about P. Diddy and his nefarious past, or maybe even still current. Didn't know much about him. Certainly didn't know he had the type of behavior that he had. But if you watch that man beat that brakes off that lady in the hallway in the public, I have a different opinion of this man at this point. But for all the years he's been making music, since 1990, whatever it is, 1991, 92, whatever it was, I didn't believe that this man had any nefarious behavior, mostly because no one ever said anything that he did that I knew of. But that doesn't mean he wasn't behind closed doors doing all kinds of egregious shit to people. He was. And I believe it. And just because there are people who are like, well, we can discredit this lady this one time, that to me doesn't mean that he didn't do all the other things that he did. And even what did he do? He got on TV or got on the little thing and said, this is egregious. This is me. Y'all trying to tear me down. Same bullshit that Jay-Z is doing right now. Or that he put in his little message on rocknation.com or wherever it was. Same thing. Y'all think y'all gonna take me down and this, that, and the third? I believe his ass is going to get taken down. And me and you are going to have this conversation again when he does, unless Donald Trump does something else. And then we can't even have internet. Okay. We won't be able to have internet or electricity because his ass is doing whatever he's doing with the tariffs. But if he gets taken down, which I firmly believe he will, and I think I don't necessarily think it's going to be about rape, but I definitely think he has he's done nefarious things, and he's going to get convicted of it in some capacity. I think that's going to happen, but we won't know, because Sloan Bella said it'll happen and it'll start in the next 3 years. And I know you want to clown me about Sloan Bella, but whatever, you can do whatever you can do with Sloan Bella. I believe that lady, and I believe that Jay-Z even done some shit. I do, because he's already proven to me that he's not a good person from the other shit that he did. But I mean, if you want to be a Jay-Z stan, you know what? I'm not gonna stop you. You go right ahead and you be a Jay-Z. You go right ahead and be a Jay-Z fan. No, I do appreciate you coming on here and giving us the other side of it. And I feel like put up a really good argument against the things that Chanel has said. So I appreciate that other side of the story. But I just want to hear the last little bit and then I'll let you go. Hold on one second. Let's just listen to the last little bit of this lying-ass attorney.
One
of the world's best-selling artists with more than 140 million albums sold, Jay-Z is also husband to Beyonce and a father of 3.
Like we from Lagos, man, Samosa reincarnated. We on our levels, that's
He vehemently denied the allegations at the outset. He spoke about the painful impact that they had, especially on his kids. How as a father, has he tried to handle this?
It's tough to hear a false lie said about you, spread through the internet and affecting your children. It's tough on him. It's tough on anybody. But what he does is he proves himself innocent. Today is hopefully the final chapter in that, and then they're going to move forward. That's what Jay does.
Jay-Z is now suing Jane Doe and her lawyer for defamation. Why not let it lie? The case is gone.
The truth had to fully come out. This person cannot be allowed to sort of hide from the reality that this was a false accusation.
While the accuser's lawsuit against Jay-Z and Sean Combs was dismissed, Combs still faces a number of other civil claims from other accusers, which he denies. And on Friday, guys, Combs is due in court to plead not guilty to a new indictment in his federal case.
So many of the indictments he's facing, Combs is.
Yeah.
So I hope, and I will say this, I do hope, I hope against hope that what this lady has accused Jay-Z of is categorically false, despite how I feel about, you know, victims and things of that nature, especially victims of sexual assault. I do hope that it's all false. I hope that not necessarily, because I know it's damaging to the other victims that maybe he or people he know or other victims in general. It does damage to their credibility, especially for the people who won't believe victims and don't have any intention of believing victims anyway. But I hope that it's all false because he has daughters. And despite what I think and know about Jay-Z, his daughters don't have anything to do with that. And his kids were not around when he was doing whatever he was doing. Like I said, the things he's been arrested of in the past. And maybe he's a changed man. Maybe. I hope he is. I highly doubt he is, but I hope he is for their sake. Because I feel bad for Blue Ivy. Like, I don't know how old the sister is and the brother, the twins. I don't know how old they are. But she's what, 13? So she's, I'm sure, well aware of what her father is being accused of. And it can't be good for her. You know what I'm saying? It can't be easy being her in general. Just in general. You have your mom's Beyonce. At the end of the day, it's got to be hard, you know, to have any level of normal. And now your father has been accused of one of the most egregious crimes of mankind outside of murder. So my heart goes out to her and her sister and her brother. And honestly, Beyonce, if she ain't a part of it either, but I don't know. Maybe she is. Not a part of the sex part, but just a part of any of the other stuff that Jay-Z's been a part of. So my heart breaks for them. It does. Because no child wants to go through that. No family wants to go through that. And at the end of the day, even if Jay-Z is 100% innocent, he's never going to be able to get away from it. At every interview, well, they don't really do interviews like that, but if he does give any future interviews, they're going to all ask him about it. They're going to say they know, but somebody's going to try to get it in. And that's going to be attached to his legacy. So I hope on one hand that he's not guilty of any of it and he's a good, decent human being that made some really poor decisions when, you know, he got arrested those handful of times and he became a different person. That's what I hope for his daughter and his children's sake and his wife. I do hope that. But on the other hand, I kind of hope he's guilty because I shouldn't say it that way because I just kind of feel like, damn, he's going to have this shit attached to him for the rest of his life. And I would only want some shit like that to be attached to a guilty person. You know, I wouldn't want that to be attached to a person who isn't guilty of that. Maybe he's guilty of a whole bunch of other shit, you know, but not that. And I think that's the real travesty or tragedy here is that if he's innocent, he can't get away from it. It's going to be on him, his daughter, his kids, his wife for the rest of their life. And I think that's unfortunate. I think it's beyond unfortunate. But anyway, you have any final thoughts about what's going on with Jay-Z and his guilt or innocence?
No particular final thoughts. I would say, if you haven't already, maybe for your next one, you can look into or have you heard of the current allegations against Odell Beckham Jr. and
Oh, Jesus.
Drewski?
Oh, Lord. Are they accused of SAN too or sexual assault?
Well, it's something you can look into.
What's his name?
It can be a good topic. Odell Beckham and Drewski.
Odell Beckham Jr.?
Yep.
Okay, this is the guy that made that incredible catch, that one-handed catch. Is that the same guy, or is that the guy that does the mamba in the end zone? Play for the. Who's the guy that does the mamba in the end zone? Because I really like him. What's his name?
I believe you're referring to Victor Cruz.
Victor Cruz! Yay! I love Victor Cruz. So is Odell Beckham Jr. the guy that did the one-handed catch, or is that Victor Cruz that did that?
It was Odell Beckham who did the one-handed.
Damn, Odell. He around here doing fuckery too. I just can't. What's the other guy's name?
Drewski.
Drewski. That's his actual name.
That's what he goes by.
Drewski. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Oh, it says Drewski. I don't know who Drewski is, but Odell Beckham Jr. I guess both of them deny Diddy rape lawsuit. Ooh, claims are unfounded. Also, the comedian. So Drewski's a comedian
of sorts.
And football wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. have been named. Ooh, in a gang rape. Damn. It's so many of them that have been named. I'm kind of like, it's almost like you get to the point where you're just like, who hasn't sexually assaulted a woman? Like, it's just so fucking pervasive, you know? It's just. The only thing I will say about the Diddy people, I'll say this last thing, is I just feel like the biggest problem to me with the Diddy stuff, with regarding the victims and the alleged perpetrators, some of them, is that if most of the people who filed lawsuits against Diddy claiming sexual assault are saying they were given a drink or they were given some sort of something and they don't recall everything, but they do know that, you know, they have some memory of things happening to them or waking up hurt or whatever it is. I have a hard time blaming those people or persecuting those people, because it's like, how do you know when they were sober doing these things or aware of doing these things and when they weren't? That's the problem to me, because it seems like, how do you prosecute them? Can you prosecute and persecute somebody who committed a felony when they were under the influence of drugs? And when I say that, not necessarily that you can't prosecute that, but like, you were given drugs unknowingly, you know what I'm saying? And then you participated in these actions. I don't know. But then again, I've never done a drug, so I don't know how much you're going to know, remember, or anything. I don't know none of that. And I don't know how far it incapacitates people. And then obviously there's going to be the argument of how much a person needs to take to be that incapacitated, and, you know, that type of thing. Because they always say that about alcohol, like, oh, well, they were this much, you know, drunk versus, you know, this much drunk. And so I don't know, but now I'm going to read up on Drewski, but I don't know who the Drewski person is. Okay, Mr. Drewski. Odell Beckham Jr. Damn. But, you know, I think Odell, I could be wrong about this too. I think Odell was in that video where Justin Bieber seemingly came from down under doing some, on his knees, that some people have said, that's not what's actually what's going on, and others believe that's what was going on, and they kind of caught him. But I don't know. But I'm like, how do you? Because then I think to myself, I really believe Diddy did a whole bunch of shit to what's his name, Justin Bieber. But I'm kind of like, if Justin Bieber was in a position where they drugged him and forced him and made him do it, even if he wasn't under the influence, or they were going to shame him or kill him or whatever it was that the consequence might be, how do we prosecute him? Do we? Can we? And I think that same sentiment about all the other people that may have been at a quote unquote party or in the situation where, other people were there, but no one did anything to help them and they were kind of forced into it. I don't know. But thank you for the next topic. I don't even know if I want to do any more topics like this because it's so heavy. It's a lot, But thank you for participating. I appreciate it. Hit that like button. Let me know what you think of this person who came on Chanel's reality and thinking that they gonna, derail my show. Nah, anyway, y'all all hit the like button and have a good rest of your night. Bye, everybody. Shout out. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
I know.